video I have for you guys today is the mid-year freakout tag. This tag, I'm not sure the original creator, but I just recently saw a video by Haley in Bookland where she did her mid-year freakout, and I found an online version as well on Katya, I believe her name is. She has a blog called The Girl Who Read Too Much, and she had a post from June 28th in 2016 where she had kind of like the list of all the questions, so I'm going to be referencing that. I printed it out because I'm old-fashioned, and if I didn't have it in front of me, I would forget everything I was going to say. But anyways, I have most of the books that I'm going to talk about with me in a pile over here, so I'll pick them up to reference them. Some of them I don't have, so I'll kind of like insert a picture of them so you guys know what I'm talking about. Yeah, so grab a snack or a drink or a coffee or whatever, get a blanket, get comfy, and get ready for the extravaganza that is my mid-year freakout. Alright, so the first question is, what's the best book that you've read so far this year? This is really hard for me because I've actually read a lot of really good books so far this year. But my pick was Let Me In by John Linkevist. The book Let Me In was originally written in Swedish. So what I read was the translated version. It was originally called Let the Right One In, but they went with the title Let Me In later on. The version I have, I actually don't have a physical copy with me because I let my brother-in-law borrow it, so he has it. But it was a really good novel. It's way different than any novel I've ever read. It's very, very, very dark, and I would not recommend it for anyone under 18. It's a vampire book, a very twisted vampire book. There's a lot of heavy topics in that book, such as child prostitution, there's rape, there's a lot of death and murder and really grisly descriptions of people being killed. The reason why I read the book was because I'm reading a book called The Craft of Emotional Fiction. I believe that's the title. And in that book, they have only about like a paragraph or two from Let Me In, and that paragraph was just amazing. Like, it immediately made me want to read the book, so I went out and found the book. I read the book and I was not disappointed. The book was dark. I was looking for another vampire book to read because it's really hard to find a really good, deep vampire book these days. I mean, if you guys have any suggestions of really good, kind of like for an older audience vampire book. The most recent book I read that was vampire was Sunshine by Robin McKinley. That one was really good as well, but Let Me In was just, I mean, amazing. I would definitely rate it maybe like a 4.75 out of 5, just because there are some really dark themes in the book and really dark content. It's very twisted and it makes your stomach turn. But the reason why I love the book so much is because I think it was one of the books that I had the most of an emotional reaction to. Not an emotional connection, but an emotional reaction. Like, I would have to put the book down every once in a while because I would get sick at certain points. Like, not sick enough to throw up or puke or anything, but like I can't believe that a human could be that way, or that someone could do that to this poor kid. Like, yeah. It was a really good book. There are lots of twists and turns. Because it was originally written in a different language, there are a lot of really hard words. For example, the names are kind of different, some of the names, and they do refer to specific things still in Swedish, but it's not hard to figure out what it is, and it usually has a translation. Another reason why I really liked that book so much was because it was so character driven. There were so many characters. I mean, off the top of my head, I can think of about 10 characters that you kind of have to filter through, and it jumps through different groups, and all of the groups kind of are connected in some way. There's like a younger teenager gang, there's an adult gang, there's the vampire and the vampire servant, There's our main character who's a young boy. It kind of jumps all around and it's all connected, and I really like books who can jump around through different characters and make all the characters' storylines connect in a really great way. It was done super well. Yeah, it was an amazing book. So I would say that was my favorite book that I've read so far this year. Second question is, what's the best sequel you've read so far in 2015? I haven't read many sequels so far this year. I've only read about 2, but of the 2, the best sequel I've read so far is Magic Study by Maria Snyder. The first book is called A Poison Study. The second book is A Magic Study, and the third book, which I'm going to get to probably later on this year, is Fire Study. But this book was really good. The main character, Yelena, has magic powers. She discovers in the first book kind of how to control some of it, and she realizes that there's tons of orphans out there in the world who also have magical powers that the kingdom has been abusing. Well, specifically not the head of their kingdom, but the advisor to the guy who's in charge of it. All of these books that I've read so far by Maria Snyder have been really good at having twists at the end. They leave nice little clues, so that way it's not too surprising and it's not ridiculous. Like, there's not some magical, like, person who's all powerful who comes in at the end and just saves everybody. It kind of makes sense. I really like her world building. It makes sense and it's pretty consistent. And I love witchy books in general. It was really heartwarming because Yelena got to meet her family at the beginning of this book, which she hasn't seen in forever, maybe since she was like 4 or a little child, because she was taken from her family. But yeah, it was really heartwarming, and it was really cool to see how her tribe responds to her being there. And it's really good, and I can't wait to read the next book, so Magic Study. Next question is, new release that you haven't read yet but want to. So I have a list of books that I want to get. So the book is called The Beautiful. It's by Renee Andier. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. I think it might be a French author because of kind of like what the synopsis says. I'll read the synopsis for you guys. So it's supposed to be the first book in a series set in 19th century New Orleans, and there's vampires in it. So this is kind of along that line of how I talked about earlier. I want vampire books that have a little bit more depth, so I'm hoping this is going to be a good one. It's set in 1872. The main character is Céline Rousseau. She's 17 years old, and she kind of flees her life as a dressmaker back in Paris, and she makes it to New Orleans. She's taken in by a convent, and it says she's kind of like swept away by the brilliance of the city and the danger as well. It says that when the body of one of the girls from the convent is found in the lair of Le Coeur de Loin, Céline battles her attraction to him and suspicions about Sebastian's guilt, along with the shame of her own horrible secret. When more bodies are discovered, each crime more gruesome than the last, Céline and New Orleans become gripped by the terror of a serial killer on the loose. One Céline is sure has set her in his sights, and who may even be the young man who has stolen her heart. As the murders continue to go unsolved, Céline takes matters into her own hands and soon uncovers something even more shocking. An age-old feud from the darkest creatures of the underworld reveals a truth about Céline she always suspected simmered just beneath the surface. It says it's supposed to be a sultry romance and a thrilling murder mystery. That's on my list to be read, which I have not read yet, and it was released this year, I believe. I hope it was, because that was the whole point of the question. So the next question is most anticipated release for the second half of 2019. So my most anticipated release is actually by one of my favorite authors, Margaret Atwood. I read The Handmaid's Tale in college and loved it. I've watched the show. It's been really interesting to see kind of like the take that Hulu and the directors at Hulu have taken with the show. I found out not too long ago that Margaret Atwood is writing a sequel, and the sequel is called The Testament. There's this little blurb next to it. It says, "There's a sequel to The Handmaid's Tale coming this fall. Atwood told fans, Everything you've ever asked me about Gilead and its inner workings is the inspiration for this book. Well, almost everything. The other inspiration is the world we've been living in. And I just love Margaret Atwood's books because they're just so real and raw, and she points out things that people are scared to talk about. That book comes out September 10th. The next question is, what was the biggest disappointment? The biggest disappointment would either have been My Sweet Audrina. My Sweet Audrina was written by V.C. Andrews. V.C. Andrews was the author of the Dollinger, I think it's Dollinger, series, which was a series that I kind of fell in love with, even though it's a really controversial series because there's incest and murder, and it's pretty crazy. But it's kind of like one of those guilty pleasures that you are almost embarrassed that you love, but you love. Yeah. Well, I finished the Dollinger series and I wanted to try another one of her books. I know she has a lot of ghostwriters, and I'm not sure if My Sweet Audrina was written by a ghostwriter or not, but My Sweet Audrina was just, I couldn't really get into it. I didn't read the physical copy of the book, I listened to the audio version, but the main character Audrina she was almost whiny. I couldn't see her past like the age of 9 when at the end of the book, I'm pretty sure she's in her 20s. It was like she was too innocent for me to be taking her real, and the problems that she was going through as real. I don't know, I couldn't really believe the story. The next book is the White Fern book. I think the series is called the White Fern Sisters or the White Fern something. And I borrowed the second book from the library, the ebook. I'm not even sure if I'm gonna read it because I felt like My Sweet Audrina was kind of a waste of time for me personally. I'm sorry if you love that book. There's interesting ideas to it, but I guess the plot twist right when they introduce the problem on like the 3rd page, and they kind of tried to put a twist in there as if like you'd think it was this other person who did something, but you know it's not that person. So it was almost like if the author was trying to make you think and believe in that plot twist, they could have done it better. I didn't like it. I don't like being negative, but either that book or another book, personally, I like this one better than My Sweet Audrina, but Belle Époque was written by Elizabeth Ross. It wasn't a bad book. It was just, it fell a little flat for me. The main character, Maud, runs away from home because she's trying to get out of this bad marriage. She ends up in Paris. She steals all the money that her family has, and she's staying in kind of like an inn for a while. And then she gets this newspaper ad that's looking for girls. She goes and applies for it. Then she realizes that it's kind of like this company who hires ugly girls to make like high society girls look even more beautiful, to kind of like compliment them. So they're almost like an accessory. Think of like a handbag, but the thing is the handbag isn't expensive and luxurious. The handbag is so treacherous that it makes the society girl look better, which is a horrible concept, I know, but it was a pretty good book. But just, I read so many like better books with more buy-in this year. Yeah, it just fell a little flat. I felt like my questions weren't answered at the end. Like the romance was kind of unbelievable for me. I don't know. Maybe it's intended for a younger audience, and maybe that's why I couldn't get into it as much. I'm sure like 14-year-old me would have loved it, but yeah, if it wasn't My Sweet Audrina, then Belle Époque was kind of disappointing. I was really excited. It was set in Paris. It was set in an era that I really like to read about. So I was kind of sad I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would. Next on the list is what was my biggest surprise. My biggest surprise was probably Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Song of Achilles starred Patroclus, who was rumored to be kind of like a lover to Achilles during the Trojan War, which Achilles is really famously known for. I really like the ties to Greek mythology. It was amazing. I love mythology in general, and Greek mythology is one of my favorites. and I really like how they tied the sea witch, who's Achilles' mother. I forget her name, but I really love how they tied her in. I wasn't expecting to like the book as much as I liked it. It really surprised me. At first, I didn't understand that it was going to star two gay characters, and I'm not opposed to reading about gay characters at all. I just haven't read many books with gay characters. It's my second book I've ever read with gay characters. I'm trying to read more books that have main characters who are part of the LGBTQ community, because I don't want to, like, I don't want all the books that I've read to be kind of closed off to just male-female relationships. I really want to be able to support writers in the LGBTQ community. So this was kind of like, it ended up being my second book, which starred gay characters, and I mean, it was amazing. After I read that book, I read Circe, and Madeline Miller is now one of my favorite authors. She does really well with mythology and really getting you into the character's mind. Song of Achilles was great. I mean, I cried, I laughed, I loved the ending. It was really cool perspective. Definitely would read it again. 5 out of 5 would recommend. Song of Achilles. Who's your favorite new author? So I just kind of like bragged about Madeline Miller for a little while, so I'm not going to say her again as my favorite author. I'm going to cheat a little bit because my favorite author of some of my favorite books I've read so far this year was not a single author. It was 2 authors co-writing, and those 2 authors are Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekana. I hope I said those names right. I read 2 books by these co-authors. The books were The Wife Between Us and Anonymous Girl. I didn't actually read the books, sorry. I listened to the audio books. They were both mysteries. They both had twists and turns that I didn't really expect. They were the kind of books that had me on the edge of my seat, and I was always listening to them constantly when I was cleaning, driving, anything. I was really addicted to those books. I probably finished An Anonymous Girl in like a week, and The Wife Between Us probably around a week as well. And I'm excited to see more books come out by them. I would definitely recommend both these books. Next up, newest fictional crush. So my newest fictional crush is Victor from Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I mean, something in me, even though I know I shouldn't, something in me is really drawn to like the torn, like, it's like he's this misunderstood guy who comes off as bad, but he actually has a big heart and he's looking out for others, and he's just like this swoony, I don't know if it's like the Twilight saga embedded in me from when I was a teenager, but Eli, I mean, he seems like he'd be a pretty hunky dude. I really like how complex his character is, and he's just kind of like one of those dark knights who I'm just rooting for him the whole time that I'm reading his story. Newest favorite character. My newest favorite character would probably be the main character from The Diabolical. So the main character, Nemesis, is a diabolical. Diabolicals are kind of like these man-made creature human things which are supposed to be assigned to someone, and they protect them at all costs. There's a lot of things going on in their government that are really corrupt. The person that Nemesis is assigned to is named Sidonia, and Sidonia is called to the capital, and instead of Sidonia going to the capital, Nemesis goes in her place. And so it's kind of Nemesis, who's not a human, trying to figure out what human emotions are and how to act like a human and how to mimic humanity. And it's really interesting because she's supposed to be like this vicious creature, but you can really see the heart that she has, the love, and that she does have emotions, but it's almost like she suppresses them, or she doesn't think they're emotions. It was a really interesting book because it's like this non-human thing is more human than a lot of humans that I know out there. It was great. So definitely Nemesis was my favorite character from all the books I've read so far this year. Even Vic. Sorry, Vic. Next on the list is book that made me cry, Let Me In as well. It was really sad. The main character, one of the main characters, the vampire Eli. It was really sad figuring out Eli's story. I cried so much. The main boy, it's pretty sad, his life too. A lot of the characters, there's just, so much sadness and death. That book made me cry a lot. It was a very emotional book for me, so definitely let me in. Book that made me happy. I listened to When the World Was Young by Elizabeth Goffney. It was really cute. It was kind of like this girl's whole lifespan up until she has this baby. And it kind of has a lot of clashes of race, a lot of clashes of different social classes. It was really nice to listen to. It's not a book I typically listen to. It was kind of like, it made me think of Nicholas Sparks types books where they kind of have like a love story. And the love story wasn't really a main focus, but it kind of had that feel of like the drama of life. But it focused a lot on ants, which was really interesting. And I think I learned more about ants than I ever want to know. But it was a really good book. I really like listening to it. I'd probably rate it like a 4 out of 5. I don't think a lot of people might really be interested in the book. Throughout her life, there are a lot of times to kind of like celebrate. And there's a lot of cute little happy moments. And I just found myself constantly smiling as I listened to that book. So definitely When the World Was Young. Favorite book to movie adaptation you saw this year? Probably 13 Reasons Why. I know it's probably a lame answer, but I don't really remember any other. I mean, I watched Fallen, but the movie wasn't all that great. I wish it was done a lot better. 13 Reasons Why. It has me hooked. I like kind of the choices that the directors and actors made. I think they're portraying it in a pretty interesting way. I'm not finished with it. I'm on the last episode of the first season. But I mean, I like it. A lot of it still feels pretty true to the book. I read the book when I was like in middle school, I think. It's kind of hard to compare it to a book I had way back when I moved cross country, so I don't even have the book anymore. But from what I remember, I like 13 Reasons Why. It's been pretty good. My roommate and I are kind of obsessed with it. Favorite review you've written so far this year? I haven't done a review yet on my channel, but I'm thinking that my favorite one is either going to be the one I do on Vicious or the one I do Down Among the Sticks and Bones, just because I really loved learning about the author of Down Among the Sticks and Bones. She's really interesting. I'm really excited for the sci-fi show to come out, and I kind of want to do a comparison between the book and the show, so that'll be really exciting. I'm torn. I don't know if Vicious and Vengeful are just kind of gonna be my favorite books this year, or if Down Among the Sticks and Bones, and kind of thinking about future videos I'm gonna do, which one of those two are gonna be my favorite. Most beautiful book you've bought so far this year? So I'm kind of tied between two. I mean, they're my take of what is beautiful. I really love like deep, dark, rich, like jaded jewel tones. And so both of these books kind of have those really dark and rich color schemes. First one is Caraval. I haven't read this book yet. I mean, it's just beautiful. This front cover, it's like this deep blue with constellations. I love the sky and constellations. I mean, what? I really like this burst here. The lettering is beautiful. I love the swirls. The red is kind of just like a nice pop. I love this little like admit one ticket on the back. It's just gorgeous. The second book who's like I was instantly drawn to the cover because of how beautiful it is Carve the Mark by Veronica Roth. There's like these kind of like slices, and it's like dripping molten or like melted gold or molten lava or something, and it's gorgeous. There's like kind of like these star or like flashes on it, and the back is also just kind of like this deep blue with like this lighter blue, looks like constellations or stars. This is another book which I mean, it's just beautiful. I think there's one more question. Okay, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? I have a really long list. I compiled a few of them on this piece of paper. I'll just read them out. House of Leaves by Mark Danielewski. The Dante Club Fire Study, which is that third book for the magic study that I've been reading. Count of Monte Cristo, I have it. I love the movie. I want to read it. Definitely one of my goals. Night Circus, which I talked about in my June TBR list. I really want to read that one. Wicked, I have read about 2 of the books from the Wicked series, and I think I have like 1 or 2 more. It's kind of confusing because I think it's like 2 series that the author of Wicked has. So yeah, I have a few of books to finish from that. Darker Shade of Magic series, I only got a couple pages into the first book, so I want to finish that. I also have the second book. I want to finish up H.P. Lovecraft's short stories. I have this kind of like compilation book of them, and I've only read, I think, 3. It's like Color Out of Space, the Thulu or Cthulhu story. I forget the last one, but I've only read a couple of them, and I really want to finish that. The Magician's Trilogy, I'm only about halfway through the first book, and I have all 3 books, so I really want to finish that trilogy. And then the Fallen series, I read the first book, which was Fallen. I talked about it a little bit before, because I was talking about how I was disappointed in the book. About how I was disappointed in the movie. But Fallen, I have the other books, and I really want to finish reading those. So, yeah. That is the end of the mid-year freak-out tag questions. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you agree with any of my thoughts. If you disagree with any of my thoughts, please just make sure that we're respectful of everyone's opinions. I know not all of you guys are going to agree with me, but let's not start any fights. We all have our own opinions, right? This is just my opinion, and take it with a grain of salt. Thanks for sticking around and visiting me in my corner of the internet. This has been really fun. Can't wait to see you guys next time.